Bitcoin has been steadily rising, just like I've been talking about, but right now there's a lot of confusion depending on whether or not you're looking at the log chart or the analog chart. In this video, I'm going to share my screen and walk through them both, explaining the key differences between them, and also how low Bitcoin could realistically go from here, and what would need to change for me to flip that view and become bullish once again. At the end of the video, I'll also give my prediction in terms of what I think is probably going to happen over the next 24 to 48 hours. And I've also had some user requests, and they've asked me to look at specific coins in the comments, so I'll make sure I'll go over those at the end as well. Real quick intro, I'm Harvinder. I've been in Bitcoin since 2015, and I've been making these updates since 2022. Before I start sharing my screen, let's first get clear on what the actual differences between log charts and analog charts are. On the analog chart, also called the linear chart, the price on the right-hand axis moves up in equal dollar increments. So whether that's $10 or $1,000 or even $10,000, the spacing is always the same. So a move up from 10K to 20K takes up the same amount of vertical space as a move up from 80K to 90K. That means the chart is measuring absolute price change, not relative change. Now, when you switch to the log chart, the scale changes completely. Instead of moving up in equal dollar amounts, the price actually moves up in percentage terms. So a 10% move looks the same, whether Bitcoin is at $1,000 or even $100,000. And that distinction matters a lot, because the reason I personally like to use log charts is pretty simple. The economy itself is measured in percentages. Central banks target inflation in percentages. Interest rates move in percentages. Risk, growth, drawdowns, returns, all these things are discussed in percentage terms. In financial mathematics, logarithms are used specifically to deal with percentage change. It simplifies the maths, and it reflects how markets actually behave over long periods of time. Bitcoin is a perfect example of this. Over long time frames, Bitcoin doesn't move linearly, it moves exponentially. If you look at the linear chart, everything in the past gets compressed, and recent price action looks parabolic. On a log chart, the structure becomes much clearer and more consistent. Another important point is time horizon. On very short time frames, the difference between a log chart and linear chart doesn't really matter too much because the price hasn't moved far enough in percentage terms to have any kind of meaningful divergence. But once you zoom out, especially on assets that have gone through large expansions, log scale becomes a lot more useful. That's also why for assets priced in fiat like Bitcoin or equities or even indices, I always use a log. Even for ratio charts like Ethereum versus Bitcoin or crypto versus an index, log scale gives a better resolution simply because of the size of the relative moves. Now, sometimes a linear chart can be useful. For example, if you're just drawing short-term support and resistance trend lines, or looking at range-bound assets, a natural scale can occasionally make sense. But over longer time periods, you should always be aware of the scale that you're looking at and what it's actually showing you. For me personally, there's another reason why I stick to log charts. I mean, if you believe in market makers and institutions and people in control pulling the strings, then it makes sense to assume that they're thinking in percentage terms too, not fixed dollar amounts. And if that's the case, I want to be looking at the same charts that they're looking at. So it's not that one chart is right and the other is wrong. It's about understanding what each one measures. Now, I don't want to go on too long, but because I do want to get into the charts, so I'll probably clip this and put this into a separate video. But linear charts basically measure absolute change. Log charts measure relative change. And for long-term analysis of Bitcoin, a log scale just aligns better with how markets, money, and risk actually work. I hope that makes sense. I know I did just ramble, but yeah, there is a difference, and I'm going to share my screen now. We'll go into the differences and see where the confusion is at the moment. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin chart, the index chart on the 4-hour on the log scale. Now, this is that trend line that I've been following for a while. And as you can see, we're almost there, but we haven't broken through it yet. But if I switch this to the regular chart, and I just redraw this, then you can see we're almost there. And so a lot of people are texting out saying, look, we're about to break through this resistance line. It's been resistance for a few months. We're due a pump, and I hope they're right. But, and I know some people, I personally like to use, I use wick to wick. And so when I'm looking at using my trend lines, I connect the wicks at the top there. Some people I know connect the bodies like that, and then they're connecting this part as well. And so when you connect the bodies, you can see that, okay, we've actually broken through. Now, again, I hope they're right. I hope Bitcoin does pump, but that's not the analysis that I use. And that's one thing I really wanted to clear up straight away. So for me, I'm using the log chart. So for me, we haven't broken this yet. We're still quite a way away. Almost there. But yeah, I'm not getting excited until it breaks through and it stays above that. So if you look at my main chart that I've been talking about, we have had that pump that I said I was expecting it over the weekend, but it didn't quite pan out. But it's happened today. And, we're at a good price point. And so I'm expecting a little bit of local resistance here. And this will probably be my target over the next day or so, hitting this level before retracing. And for me to get bullish, we really need to break this trend line and stay above it. So that's what I'm looking at. Let's quickly look at stablecoin dominance. So this is due a bounce from here. If it does break this, then yeah, Bitcoin could definitely go a lot higher. And so I am keeping an eye on this. This has been acting as support for this stablecoin dominance chart. Let's have a quick look at all the other assets. So let's look at the US dollar. Yeah, that's continuing to trend down. That's good. Gold, we've got to talk about gold. That's hit new all-time highs again. We are at this resistance point now. And so I'd wonder if it continues to go up from here. And let's see. My best guess would be a retrace from here. Silver is going crazy. I don't even have any lines to draw in here. I probably should at some point. Copper's doing really well. Natural gas. US oil has somewhat recovered, so that's a good thing. We definitely don't want this to continue to crash because that doesn't normally mean good things for the economy. All right, I have a couple of user requests. First one is JK-IV4XH. He's asked me to look at Bitcoin Cash. Now, I haven't looked at this in a while, so let's have a look. Let's go out into the weekly. Now, the chart I'm using is a Bitstamp one. If you type in Bitcoin Cash, there's lots that come up. I couldn't find the index one. I normally like to use where it says index on the right-hand side here. But I know Bitcoin Cash normally, most coins normally have a lot of history with them, so the chart goes back quite a lot. So this actually looks all right, this chart. I mean, this isn't in a downtrend, long-term anyway. Long-term, it's not even in an uptrend, it's just somewhat flat. And that's good price action. When I look at charts, I want to see some kind of stability. I don't want to see like big pumps and big dumps. This is just, going up really nicely. So I'm actually quite surprised. So first thing I'm going to do is draw some support. And so for me, that would be the logical level of support. And so if the price were to capitulate, then yeah, this is where it would go. And I really don't think that's going to happen. And then the next thing I'm going to do is draw some kind of resistance levels. Now there's a few you could draw here. That's definitely a good one. You could even try and probably draw something like this. Maybe even connect that. See, that is looking really good. And from a more local point of view, we've broken through that level. I'm just going to keep that there actually. So this is definitely a good looking chart. And I'm not saying I'm going to buy it. I'm not recommending it. But, when you look at this is primed for some kind of breakout here. So as long as the problem with doing trading analysis on alts is that it really does depend on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin crashes, then it's just going to bring most things down with it. But what I like about this is that it's been steady growth. even in this recent capitulation of Bitcoin, the price hasn't really moved much. I mean, if you calculate that, it went down, what, 20%, 25%? Whereas most alts, from like from the past 12 months are down like 70, 80%. So this is really good. Almost to the point where I'd probably consider putting some money into this when the markets start to break out. And so to be conservative, I would probably say this level here is definitely in play. Not anytime soon, but when the markets do start pumping again, yeah, this is probably going to do pretty well. So that's that. So I've added this to my list. I'm going to keep an eye on it. The next request is from Madrid-R80. They've asked me to look at XRP. Now, I did look at XRP last week on my live stream, so I doubt anything has changed since then. But let's see. So I've been around in crypto long enough to call this Ripple, back in the days when it was called Ripple. So yeah, we're still in this downtrend, still waiting to break this resistance level, and I could probably even draw another resistance level. So yeah, we need it to break out of here. And this is very likely to continue to do well. It's an OG coin. It's done really well, but been one of the only coins that, one of few that's done well in this run. And yeah, I would say this is definitely going to do well in the next run, maybe even as high as this $10 mark. So yeah, there's not really much else to say on this one. I mean, I did do analysis on my live stream. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I make these Bitcoin updates pretty much every day, and I hope you understand more about the differences between log charts and analog charts and why I prefer to use a log. And yeah, if there's any coins that you want me to look at, as long as it's on TradingView, just drop a comment and I'll add it to my list and go over it in the next video. And also go live every Friday, 3 p.m. UK time at the moment. And I know it's going to be Boxing Day this Friday, but I'm still going to do it. And so yeah, if you want to jump on live, ask me any questions, it'll be great. And yeah, feel free to subscribe, like, share, comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video.